right about now. You should be seeing it on your screen now. So it's only a few questions, barely, I think four or five questions. Yeah, so kindly just take 2 minutes to fill that particular poll, just to let us know, where we are, even as our Daktari begins the talk. And in a few minutes, I'll be able to share the results, just to guide us on, to give a temperature of the audience where we are on some of these things. But feel free, it's going to be anonymous. And yeah, let's engage. So I'll play some entertainment even as we continue with the poll.
Uniloweshe zaidi na roho wako, na 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 na. Lord, I need some more of you. More of you. Lord, I need some more of you. Kama vile ayala atamanivyo maji kule jangwani na kungoja, kama vile ayala atamanivyo maji kule jangwani na kungoja. Kama vile ayala atamanivyo maji kule jangwani na kungoja, kama vile ayala atamanivyo maji kule jangwani na kungoja. Bwana nakungoja, Bwana nakungoja.
Okay, I think we'll leave the rest of the music for after the session. I'm seeing there's a good amount of participation in the poll. I trust Daktari is also taking note, even as the results are displayed on the screen, just to guide his talk as he proceeds. Thank you all for taking time to participate in this brief poll. Just to give you a quick background, our presenter today is going to be Dr. Samuel Otieno from AAR Nairobi. And a quick background into what will be happening even for this particular program. I'll do a quick intro, and then Daktari will come in with his presentation. We'll have some time of Q&A, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And then afterwards, for those who are at home, we'll try and do a virtual group photo. At least I did not ambush you. It would be nice we can take a picture with the Daktari. We'll just open our cameras and it would be nice to have that collage happening. So I know maybe there are those who maybe you're in the house, you're resting. For those who maybe are wearing a vest, at least I've given you a chance to look for a shirt. So proceeding, our host today, our guest today, sorry, is Dr. Samuel Otieno. I met him when I went for my checkup, health checkup sometime last year, and I'm actually quite glad that this presentation could happen, because I found what he advised me to be quite useful, and I thought one day it would be really nice if I could have the opportunity to share it with the rest of us staff members, because it really helped me in terms of my weight, in terms of my cholesterol, and I'm not there yet. I'm not perfect, but I really feel good, and I want to appreciate Dr. Otieno, and I thought he can also invest even in our staff, even in the time that we have. So he's from AAR. Just a heads up, in case you're trying to do your annual checkup, this is a really good place to go. They have branches here at Williamson House. I went to the one at ICA in case you're in town. So yeah, and they're the ones who alerted me about wellness and nutrition. For those who have gone for their annual checkup, you'll notice at the bottom there's something called wellness and nutrition. And AAR were quite keen on making sure that I book a separate appointment with Dr. Samuel, which is within that particular entitlement of that annual checkup, for me to have my, my nutritional assessment. So in that, he was able to measure my cholesterol. It was not looking very good. I was actually surprised it was a sour note when he told me my cholesterol was bad, because I considered myself active. I play a lot of sports. But, through him, he gave me a meal plan, and I moved from being 91 kgs to the last time I checked, I'm around 87. So instead of looking for holes to add on my belt, now the belt is more than enough the way it is. I don't need any more holes to keep adjusting, fitting on my waist. So in the time that we have left, I think kindly you can keep your mics muted, even as I prepare to welcome Dr. Samuel. He's here with his colleague. I'm sure he'll say maybe one or two things, but for the next 30 or 40 minutes, he'll take us through some presentation about tips on nutrition, what you need to eat. I know that's usually tricky. You have several diets where you're fasting or you're going without food. Someone can even faint, but he's here to give us at least an interesting perspective from his end. And from what I've seen for myself, it actually works. So without any further ado, I'm going to stop sharing on my end. And with that, I'll also look to start the recording. Okay, I see my colleague is helping me with the recording. So with those few remarks, thank you, Victor, for assisting me with the recording. Dr. Samuel, karibu sana.
Thank you so much, sir. Am I still audible enough at your end?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Thanks a lot. So before we begin, I must say thank you to you people for having us on board. We're going to talk about matters nutrition and health. And before I go any further, I'd like to invite my colleague, Defense Moshe. She will take us through the introductory part of AR and what we deal with, and then that will be all. Thanks a lot. Karibu sana, Defense.
Thank you very much, Samuel, and thank you, Mr. Ronald. You've really done a very good intro about AR Healthcare. I must say we are appreciating the intro. So my name is Defense, and I specifically, we sit at Williamson House. If you may understand that we are a large network of outpatient centers. And so we are like 21 outpatient centers. So I specifically sit at Williamson, which is our main clinic. I think it should be near your company. This is in Upper Hill, Fort Ngong Avenue. And so we are saying welcome for your wellness checks. I have seen the poll, and I'm so encouraged that most of you get to know that we do the annual checks. And that is really where my intro is to just encourage you to do your annual checks, because this health education, as AR, we conduct it to our clients, and our focus is to just influence our clients to make healthy decisions in prevention of lifestyle diseases. And so we are excited every time we are given this forum. We are happy to come in and just give education to our clients, whether insured or not insured. And so we are extending a hand of invitation to AR Williamson. We are on the second floor of Williamson House. Come in for your checkups, come in for your blood pressure. Because I saw, I think, I saw a question on BMI. I don't know if I was sure to see the polls. My question to all the clients we do health education, to ask them, when was the last time you even did your blood pressure? So I want to encourage us to take our health our priority and make sure that we are keen to catch anything that probably would be an issue in our bodies, especially in this time of pandemic. So with no further ado, Samuel, you get to access Samuel's services every first and third Thursday of the month. I know he'll elaborate on that. And so, as Mr. Ronald said, he benefited. Most of us have benefited. And so please be part of the family and benefit with us. So with no further much ado, I'm in to sit and also learn. Karibu sana, Samuel.
Thank you so much, friends. Thank you for helping us understand who we are. And indeed, I beg to begin. We're going to talk about lifestyle diseases. And thankfully, it is not a topic on corona or COVID, because that is something that is caused by organisms other than us, organisms not us. But lifestyle illnesses are normally self-inflicted mostly, as in we are the main causes, although we have other causal factors as well. So one good thing about lifestyle illnesses is that they don't come with a bang. They don't just attack you from nowhere. They always have a very slow progression rate. So that means that whenever you frequent hospitals and you go visit hospitals, even when you feel like you're healthy and you do those checkups, especially those annual ones, you're able to detect your issue early enough so that at least we don't wait too long when the illness is a bit progressed in the body. Of course, we also have other factors that can cause the same lifestyle illnesses, including genetical factors. It can be inherited, physiological factors like body weight changes, all right, hormonal changes during pregnancy and the rest, and then environmental factors, and also chiefly, they are caused by our behaviors or lifestyle. Examples include obesity and overweight. Of course, obesity and overweight is diagnosed according to somebody's BMI. When your BMI is above 25 kilograms per meter squared, you're considered overweight. And then when it gets to 30, you're considered obese. And BMI is a ratio between weight and calculation of our weight over our height in meters squared. I'll talk about that briefly later on. And then, of course, another include high blood pressure. And high blood pressure is anything above 120 over 80. All right, in terms of BP measurement, I mean, BP machine measurement readings, and then also stroke, and also diabetes, and also cancer, gout, especially gouty arthritis, which affects our bones and bone joints. And then another one would be substance and alcohol abuse, all right, including cigarette abuse as well. All right. Normally, if you're very keen during your annual checks, you'll always find that we really insist that you have to also do your cholesterol. And that test is normally called lipid profile. So it gives us the breakdowns of the types of fats and cholesterols you have, because cholesterols are in various forms, and each form acts differently to help our health be better or to harm our health. And just to break down for us, the main cholesterol that affect us most are normally the bad cholesterols, what we call the LDLs. Our LDLs tend to come from animal fat, like the fatty chunks of meat. I'll give examples in the slides as we continue. So it's always good to moderate on animal fat. If you love your proteins, it's good to be taking also a break from them, and it's good to be doing also proteins from plants, which are the legumes, all right? So, but I want to say as well at this stage that the body still needs cholesterols. Normally, our bodies use cholesterols to make hormones. So when the levels of cholesterols are low, again, we suffer harm. Although our levels of cholesterol shouldn't be high either, because that can also cause blockages of arteries. Now, apart from BMI being used as a marker as to whether we are well nourished or whether we are overweight or obese, we also have other parameters that we use in the hospital to find out whether somebody is well nourished or underweight or overweight or obese. An example is body fat percentage, all right, which is normally done using a very simple machine called body fat percentage machine. And the levels for men should be 25% and no more than that. And then women should be 32% because women tend to have more body fat distribution, all right, around their bodies. And then, of course, we also have another parameter called waist circumference. So when you're a man, your waist should not be more than 1 or 2 centimeters, all right? Anything above that would be considered overweight. And then for ladies, 88 centimeters, all right? Yeah, I think all of us can know what our BMI is as long as you know your weight and your height. So you take your weight in kilograms, you divide with your height in meters squared, and then when you do the calculation, it gives you your BMI. So if it is lower than 18.5, that is considered underweight. Normal BMI should be 18.5 to 24.9. And then anything 25 and above is already overweight. And then 30 is where obesity begins. So according to what your BMI is, you can really know whether you should be maintaining your weight, adding your weight, losing your weight, etc. All right. But listen, sometimes we judge harshly those that are obese or overweight. It doesn't automatically apply that when somebody is obese or overweight, that they should be having health issues. All right. Sometimes we like judging the book by the cover and always concluding generally that when somebody is obese, then they should be having high blood cholesterol. They should be having pressure at the rooftop. They should be having obesity and cancers. Sometimes it depends with what these people do in their lifestyle. We've seen in the hospitals very, very slim people. I don't know whether to say people like Ronald, very, very slim, but sometimes when they walk into the hospitals, you would even ask why they're coming for their cholesterol, because judging from layman perspective, you would think that they should be having very, very good readings, only to test them and find that their readings are very high. So sometimes it is not, your health is not determined only by your weight, but what you do with your weight, all right? If this guy on the screen kept a good watch over what he eats, doesn't eat junk, he exercises, and then he eats plenty of vegetables and fruits, takes a lot of water, and then lives positively, manages his stress and depression, and limits on alcohol and cigarette, is bound to have a better health than somebody who is completely slim, but never does what I listed, all right? Now, certain times we are told not to be increasing weight overboard, because drastic increase in weight, especially when your BMI gets to above 25, you're bound to have what we call atherosclerosis, which in layman means the narrowing of blood vessels. And these blood vessels get to narrow because of accumulation of the body fat that we have. But apart from increased body weight, other factors like smoking also have an effect in our blood vessels, so also makes them narrow. Okay, so we are told, we're advised not to be indulging into such, at least to help our health. All right. Mostly every time when you go to the hospital, you'll always pass by the nurse in the triaging room, and you will have your body parameters checked. We normally call them anthropometrics. So we get your height checked and your weight checked, so that will give us your BMI, right? And then you also get your blood pressure checked. That will also help us know how you're behaving in terms of your blood pressure limits. And sometimes it is good to be very, very keen when the nurse is measuring your blood pressure. Don't make it like don't make it like a duty, and then it ends like that. Be very inquisitive and ask whether it is okay or not. Sometimes people treat triaging moments in the hospital like kazi ya nurse tu, alafu daktari ndiye atajua, mimi sitaki kujua ilikuwa ngapi. Sometimes it is good to walk back home knowing what your blood pressure was, because sometimes as I said before, when we detect these things early enough, we can be able to have a better outcome in terms of managing them. All right. And then a lot of people normally complain that I came to the hospital for something else, and when the nurse checked my pressure, she found it to be high. And yet for me, I didn't come to the hospital for blood pressure check. So sometimes, and that is why the government made it as a rule that whatever you come to do to the clinic in the hospital, you always have to pass by the nurses and then have your pressure checked. And normally, in most cases, blood pressure is normally diagnosed when somebody didn't even think that akonayo, all right? That is why sometimes it is always good. Don't wait to listen to your body. Some people normally like waiting and saying, the day my body will begin complaining of high blood pressure, like those symptoms of headache, difficulty seeing, sweating, and a lot of general body weakness and tiredness, many people normally say, at that time is when I will begin handling the whole thing of the blood pressure. But normally, as long as the PP machine has alluded that your pressure is high, it is good to begin changing lifestyle. If you're smoking, quit smoking. If you're drinking, reduce. If you're having increased body weight, try to limit it or reduce it as well. If you're too depressed and stressed, also try to avoid that and manage. If you're not physically active, try to be active. So by and by, you are likely to be able to manage the whole thing of pressure without depending on medication, all right? Especially when it is at its preliminary stages. So normal blood pressure is normally said to be between 90/60 up to 120/80. 90/60 up to 120/80, all right? Now, if your pressure bypasses or exceeds 120/80, we don't call you hypertensive, but we call you borderline hypertensive or pre-hypertensive, up to 139/89. Then when we get to 140/90 and that consistently, then somebody can be said to be having stage 1 hypertension, all right? But a little bit of change of lifestyle can also help us just have a better outcome. I think I talked about that. I won't repeat. And that also blockage your blood vessels. All right. Sometimes your blood pressure can be high simply because of other causal factors, especially things to do with the cholesterol, because cholesterol normally like blocking blood vessels, making them a bit narrowed, as the pictures depict in the slides. And that is why sometimes when your doctor or your physician detects high blood pressure in you, especially in the preliminary stages, they're normally very keen on handling your blood cholesterol. So sometimes you'll be given drugs. Sometimes you will be told your blood cholesterol are not as bad, so you won't be taking drugs, but you can be managing them through lifestyle changes, physical activity, losing weight, healthy eating. But all in all, I'm saying that understand your doctor when they are keen on your blood cholesterol. So when you're having high blood pressure, because sometimes when we deal with this, we end up having successful management of the other. All right. And thankfully enough, cholesterol are not permanent as high blood pressures would be. So sometimes when we manage it, we end up also helping prevent a permanent illness or a chronic illness. Now, other than high blood pressure, cholesterol can also affect, cause other health issues like heart attack when they block blood vessels, supplying the wall of the heart with oxygen, like the pictures depict. And then also when they affect the brain as well and cause, especially high blood pressure, also in the midst of high cholesterol, and then with smoking and also alcohol drinking in the background can make a good fertile ground for a stroke to occur. And stroke, simply put, normally refers to the rupture or the breakage of a blood vessel supplying the brain. And essentially it will be causing, that will lead to hemorrhage or bleeding within the brain. And that can also cause paralysis somehow. All right. And then I don't know how much sugar you people are using, but if you're not diabetic, you're very safe. You can be using sugars, but within certain limits. Sugars are the body's main form of energy, so they are our fuels. But we should be taking them when we are also physically active, because sometimes when we take sugars but we're very inactive, a lot of them will not be used at all. So normally when they don't get used, they'll be turned into glucose and then into glycogen, which is a form of storage of glucose. And then by and by, some of them are also normally turned into fats called triglycerides. So those can also affect our weight. For a normal non-diabetic person, your teaspoonful of sugar in your cup of tea should not be more than 1.5. I don't know whether that is, that's going to work for somebody here. I know of some people who normally take tea as sweet as honey. So they may even put 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's not like very advisable. Even if you're not diabetic, the abuse of sugar is not very recommended, because sometimes diabetes can also occur because of predisposing your body cells to excess sugars as well. All right. Otherwise, other than sugar, we should also limit things like cakes and creams, chocolates and candies and sweets, biscuits with creams. What else? Things like jam as a bread spread and soft drinks, because those things are normally very, very sugared or glucosidated. So try to avoid them if possible. If you miss your Fanta or your Coca-Cola, go grab a fruit in the fruit market and go blend it and go cool it in your fridge and take your your version of your soda in terms of fruit juice. You'll do your body a lot, especially in these COVID times when you need a very robust immune system. And our immune system is made robust by the fruits we take because they give us the supply of vitamins and minerals. Okay, so that is it about sugars. So don't think about sugars only in terms of the many teaspoons you add in your tea, but also think about sugars in terms of sodas and soft drinks, cakes and creams, chocolates for ladies that love chocolates or even men that love chocolates, and jam as a bread. Yes, and I want to talk about honey a bit. I think I will discuss it when it comes. It's in one of our slides. It's coming. So let me just hold my horse there. So normally when you do your annual checks, you also end up having to do your uric acid levels. And that normally helps us to know, especially for people that have the problem of gout. Gout is a case of swollen bone joints because of excess accumulation of uric acid. And that normally brings about what pain in terms of, in our joints. So for lovers of red meat in the house, red meat is a very good source of protein. It also is a very good source of iron. So we are encouraged to do red meat, but we cannot be doing red meat every day of the week. Maximally twice a week, because apart from red meat, you also have white meat. So it's good to alternate between red and white. But again, sometimes in certain days of the week, just be taking your legumes or proteins from plants, things like lentils and green peas and groundnuts and green grams and beans and chickpeas and the rest, all right? So proteins from plants or the legumes. Why? Because too much intake of red meat can cause us health consequences, which chiefly is what I said is gout or swollen bone joints. And you may think this is a disease of the aged or the elderly, but now normally it occurs even among the fairly young people like us. So it's good to avoid, especially the habit of red meat and alcohol as well. So it's good to just play safe. All right. If you're having sugar issues, normally you will always have to take to do blood sugar tests when you're doing your annual checks. And then when you're seeing a doctor and you're complaining of things like fatigue, frequent urination, frequent thirst, especially you're taking water, but you don't know where the water goes, you still keep on getting thirsty. Sometimes it may be a leading symptom to diabetes. So the doctor may want to take you through the categories of blood sugar tests, like random and also fasting. So random is where you do your blood sugar test after 2 hours of taking your meal. The level should be 3.5 up to 11.1. Anything above that is considered high blood sugar levels or diabetes. Then there is one that you do normally, fasting in the morning before taking anything. We normally call it fasting blood sugar. Normally, it's supposed to be 3.5 up to 7. Anything above 7 is normally considered as high blood sugar. All right. Let me continue. Other than what I've discussed, I want to talk about generally healthy nutrition tips, because sometimes we like getting extreme. When somebody is told that you're having a bit of cholesterol as high or a bit of your sugars are high, we normally end up drastically eliminating food or eating in our diet or our meals. So sometimes it is not good to starve yourself in order to achieve a certain health goal. It's good to play safe, because at the end of the day, your body needs food. Sometimes if you go starving yourself to lose weight, or to help your cholesterol come down quickly, or to help your sugars come down quickly, or to help address your hypertension quickly, the fact that you don't eat means that your body will be starving. And if you don't eat, your body cannot get enough energy or enough supply from food to keep your immune system strong enough. So sometimes people that skip meals end up having very, very poor or weak immune system, especially in these COVID times when our immune system should be very, very high. So sometimes we do our bodies harm. The little breakfast you miss when you're heading to work, the little lunch we miss when you're busy at workplace, the little supper you miss when you're worked up after work and you say, I will not cook today, I'm so tired. You only end up your day with a glass of maybe, a cup of coffee, and that is it for the night. Those little meals we miss will end up affecting our health in the long run, especially as far as our immune system is concerned. So we are encouraged to factor in food or meals and make them an important part of our lives. And if possible, make your food tasty enough. There is this hype or misconception that the more boring your food is, the more healthy it is. As nutritionists and dietitians, we discourage that your food must be tasty enough. You can make your food tasty by using all the spices you have in the world, all right? So if you're making your food boring in the name of thinking that that is what good nutrition is, we really discourage that, because the moment your food that in the house is boring, that is the time you'll be so tempted to go grab that KFC and that pizza, and that will in the end affect your health, all right? So it's good to just make your food tasty enough, all right? And then secondly, another health nutrition tip, we are more safer eating at home, because that will limit us from getting to the fast food stores to get those KFCs, to get those soft drinks, which will affect our levels of our levels of cholesterol and the rest. So we are more safer eating at home, and if possible, if you're living in your house, be carrying your packed lunch to workplace. All right. I don't know how the staff would take that, but we encourage that, because it ends up helping us avoid the temptation to order fast foods around us. Okay. And then we are also, I don't know what your breakfast normally encompasses or involves, but there is this shift nowadays of people getting out of sifted or refined carbohydrates like biscuits and cakes and white breads for breakfast to things like boiled maize, cassava, arrowroot, sweet potatoes, yeah. And sometimes, by the way, and Ronald can remember this, sometimes your best breakfast may involve repeating supper for breakfast, because that will really make you have, a very heavy stuff, because breakfast will be the heaviest meal of the day, since it is the starter, so it is the day's starter. Then I talked about sugar and honey. Now there is this habit of people avoiding sugar, but then overdoing honey. So we don't recommend that. At the end of the day, too much abuse of honey will still cause you health problems. So we should try to avoid honey. Just like sugars, we shouldn't take more than 1.5 teaspoons of honey, because honey and sugar have the same glucose concentration levels. Although honey is a bit safe because it is not so much chemically refined. If you love your water, you do well to take your water the plain way. Sometimes people like glucosylating their water or sugaring their water. I don't know whether their plain water normally appears bitter to them, but I'm saying your water will only be hydrating to you or when you take it the plain way it is. Sometimes when you put, always when you put glucose to water or honey to water or sugar to water, the water won't be able to quench your thirst, but the water will be increasing your thirst. And that is also why the reason the habit of taking sodas to quench your thirst is not really recommended, because sodas have a lot of sugars. When they get into your body, they will make your body give up its water to dilute the sugars that are in the soda, so that it is removed, the excess sugar is removed out of the body as part of urine. So if you look at the whole picture, those soft drinks end up making you lose more water than you had before taking them. So if you are thirsty or if you like taking water, you do well to take them without anything added. All right. There is this habit of taking adding lemon or lime to water when you're drinking the water. Okay, so it's always advisable that you do well, again, as I say, to drink water the plain way, unless you're having a certain health problem. Sometimes if you're having things to do with acidity, a very sensitive stomach or hyperacidic stomach, you're having issues with gastritis, recurrence of gastritis, or peptic ulcers or stomach ulcers. Sometimes if you do this, if you take your lemonade, you're going to really erode or irritate your stomach lining, and you're going to harm the tissues that were already healing because of the excess acidity of the lemonade. So it's good to take precaution when using them, all right? But the habit of adding a little bit of lemon in your water in the morning and taking it is okay, because sometimes lemon is it also supplies our bodies with vitamin C, which is very key in improving our immunity in these times of the corona. But it's good to mix. It's good to be alternating. Don't let it be a daily thing. All right. The habit of taking water with lemon juice to lose weight also depends with your underlying health condition. If your stomach is strong enough, you don't have issues with acidity and heartburn, yes, you can do that. But if you're having sensitive stomach, you're always complaining of heartburn, bloating. If you eat red beans, you will always be complaining. Sukuma wiki, you cannot do. Yeah, you cannot get into that because that will affect you a lot. But listen, the weight you lose by taking water with lemon juice added isn't even a substantial percentage. All right. So I think you can lose weight by other methods other than taking lemon with water with lemon. Okay, I understand that my time is going, so I've got like 3 minutes. I think I'd explained that. Let me also finish up with a few slides about exercises. We're encouraged to be physically active because the more lethargic, the more lazy we are, the more our bodies will be denied avenues of burning excess fats and excess cholesterol and excess sugars. All right. So sometimes the habit of walking to work or walking from work or having time over the weekends to just walk around and jog around, run around really helps us because it makes us like freshwater lakes where when water comes in, it doesn't stay forever. It's also allowed outside. All right. Sometimes when the food comes in terms of sugars and the fats, when you are physically active, you give your body an avenue or an outlet to deal with the excess from accumulating. Because during exercises, we normally use our muscles and our biceps normally use up fats and the sugar. So that prevents them from accumulating. But there is this a bit of there is this bit of consistency. Sometimes when you're working out, consistency is more better, and consistency means you doing it in bits but regularly. So that is more better than doing it once but intensely. Like you go to the gym for a whole 3 hours, but you do that after 2 weeks. That will not really help you with losing weight, achieving good health. I'd rather you do your walks like 3 days a week, but about 30 minutes and consistently. That will help you achieve much. All right. So, and then when you're working out to lose weight, to manage blood sugar levels and also high blood pressure, it's good to begin from the low as you increase to the high. So if you are, especially if you're obese, don't begin by running. All right. The third one, always begin by walking consistently. Then once you begin losing your weight, you can go to what? You can go to running. And then you can, jogging, then you can go to running. Because sometimes if you're too obese or overweight and you begin by running, you're really going to harm your ankles and your bone joints. And that can even cause osteoarthritis or even ligament damage because of the weight of the body rubbing against your, ankle joints. So it's good to begin on the slow as you increase. Right, and that is what that slide explains. And then there is this habit of using supplements. If you're not confirmed to be having a deficiency disease, your best supplement should be a fruit. All right, so it's good to try not to take supplements where possible because we get enough of what supplements have from fruits and vegetables. Sometimes excessive intake of supplements can harm your liver and cause hypertoxicity, so it's good to balance. All right, and then let me also wind up with alcohol. Whether you're dealing with beers or wines or liquors, alcohols are chemicals, so they don't really form part of what food is. And all alcohols being chemicals and poisonous, they have to go through the liver for safe removal. So there is a correlation between alcohol intake and high blood pressure, alcohol intake and poor health, alcohol intake and gastritis or a bit of acidity in the stomach, alcohol intake and high blood cholesterol. Normally, the body makes part of the cholesterol in the liver, but sometimes when the liver has a lot of alcohol to deal with, to break down, the liver normally is malfunctioned or overworked, and that makes it end up to make, having to make excess cholesterol. So sometimes if you're having high blood cholesterol, so probably your best medication is toning down on your alcohol, all right? And then the worst thing about alcohol is that it affects the liver most. It can cause fatty liver disease, and then liver cirrhosis and liver damage or liver cell death. Okay, as the pictures depict. And then when you're losing weight, it's not good to starve yourself. I'll finish in brief about how to go about losing your weight. I'm finishing in the next 1 minute. So sometimes you've heard of people using weight loss methods like keto, intermittent fasting, or 1 meal a day. We don't really recommend them because they're not sustainable. they're not sustainable. I mean, you can't observe them forever. I mean, for life. And once you lose your weight and back off, the weight that you lost will come back because you will have disrupted what the body was used to as a routine. So lastly, when you're eating your meals, try to factor in the 4 food classes in your plate at any time you're eating your meal, whether to manage your weight, to manage your cholesterol, to manage your blood sugar, to manage your high blood pressure, or to just achieve general healthy eating habits. Ensure that your plate at any particular meal time, whether breakfast, lunch, and supper, has the 4 food classes: your vegetables, your fruits, your carbs or starches, and then your protein. So yeah, avoid scenarios where Kenyans what Kenyans like doing, where they only have 2 things in their plate: their starches, their ugali, and their nyama, full stop. When you put for them vegetables, they remove, or they eat their nyama and their ugali, then they leave for you the vegetable and you take it back to the kitchen. So it's good to factor in the 4 food categories. We especially need veggies and fruits because they give us vitamins to fight illness, especially in these times of the corona. So lastly, when you're eating, we're advised to begin our meals with a glass of water. So water before the meal is more helpful to you. So let water come first. Then secondly, your fruit should come second, all right? And then thirdly, you can eat your meal, but after the water plus the fruit, when you're eating your meal, half your plate must be vegetables only, all right? Then the other upper half, the first quarter for proteins, and the other quarter is for carbohydrates. I think I'm done. Let me now give it now to Ronald to help us handle the Q&A. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, wow. Thank you, Dr. Samuel. Our time does not do us justice. That was a very insightful session. I know I also spent time with you, but I'm also learning new information. Today, at least we don't have to pay consultation fees. But I know maybe your colleague might not might not like that. But at least maybe in future will come again for follow-up. But I'm seeing a lot of questions in the chat section.